Hello, it's Mark from WinningSolutionsinc.com and MicrosoftAccessExpert.com. I'd like to talk to you a little bit today about databases and data management, particularly in the healthcare field. So WSI has been building databases, moving and consolidating data since 1996. We have the experience, expertise, and to properly, efficiently, and securely move your data. We work with customers ranging from small businesses to large corporations and provide our clients with first-class service. Today, as I said, I want to focus on the healthcare industry, but if you are in any business that deals with data, and almost everyone today deals with data in their business, the concepts that we're going to discuss in this video will apply to your organization too. So first thing is, you need to think about if it is time in your organization to move from perhaps having data on multiple Microsoft Excel spreadsheets or a variety of other legacy systems to Microsoft Access or perhaps Microsoft SQL Server. So if so, and if this is the situation in your organization, you've come to the right place. So just as with moving your present home from one home to a new home as you would in the real world, you can do some of it yourself, all of it yourself, or you can hire a moving company. So if you want to just kind of think of us as a moving company for data, that's one way to consider us. So we can be your data moving company. So we'll even build a home for your new data. So unlike a moving company that probably wouldn't be in the home construction, since we're working with data and managing data, we can build the structures and software necessary for you to interface with your data and store your data as well. So kind of a one-stop shop. And then once you have your data in a system like that, then you can manage it and report on it. And you can do these things your way, not someone else's way. And that we think is very critical. So let's talk about the data situation where you've got data on multiple spreadsheets. There's really nothing wrong with this. I mean, everybody has to start somewhere with their data. And while a spreadsheet is designed really for doing mathematical operations, it can and is often used to store data. But at a certain point, this can become unwieldy. So when I'm talking about spreadsheets, I'm not just talking about Microsoft Excel. You may have your data in a system like Google Docs, in their spreadsheet system, and you may need to get that into a true relational database. And once I mention some of these things, you'll realize that there are certainly problems with having data in a spreadsheet. For one thing, you can run into formula corruption where someone inadvertently types over some very important formula in one of your fields and messes things up. That can be a huge problem, especially, again, as the spreadsheets get bigger and multiple people need to use them. And, of course, it's just kind of tough, even to have multiple people working on a spreadsheet at the same time. So all those spreadsheets can be used as a database because they're storing data, so it's a database, right? They're not really intended for that purpose. It's not the right tool for that job. The other thing is that it's difficult in a spreadsheet to establish data security and user permissions. Who can see what? When can they see it? That type of thing. If you're now getting to a point where that's becoming important, then it's time to get away from spreadsheets. So moving from one or multiple systems to another, or attaching another database for reporting or analysis. So maybe you just need to get at some data that's in different systems and be able to report on it. So we can help you do that. One of the ways that's done is through creating a data view. So that's taking a copy of the data, basically, and making it accessible for reporting so that when you're working with it, there's no chance of the data being damaged or messed up in any way because you're simply working with a view or copy of the data. And then there's more advanced things like ODBC Connections, which is just a fancy computer buzzword for open database connectivity, which is a way one database can talk to another. And making sure that, again, that's set up in such a fashion that something can't happen inadvertently that you don't want to have happen to your data is important when you're setting it up for doing reporting and that sort of thing. And then, of course, there's the good old export-import process where you're exporting data from an existing system and then bringing it into another system to do other things with. And while that's very effective and very safe because you've always got that original copy of the data that you're exporting from, it's not as efficient because the data is only going to be as current as the last export. So now let's talk a little bit about the user interface for the data. An intuitive user interface is really key to user adoption. And part of that is not just having a cool looking interface, which we can do, but having an uncluttered interface. So one of the things we see time and time again from different systems is that somebody's built a system and then they offer it commercially and then they keep adding on to it because they get all this customer feedback. But customer A doesn't need what customer B, what customer C, what customer D has. But in the next version, they always get all that stuff, whether they need it or not. And maybe you just liked it the way it was. You just have no control over that type of thing when you're working with a system that is pre-programmed and packaged, and you're just kind of at their mercy, so to speak. So a little later, we'll talk about how do you avoid that situation. And then there's, all kinds of different platforms now for looking at data. Maybe you want to look at it in a web browser, and that might make sense in many situations. And then there's, of course, mobile, which is extremely popular because everybody's got a smartphone nowadays. But that screen is small, and, maybe that really isn't an appropriate platform for this type of data analysis. But there might be certain elements of the data that really do make sense to expose on a mobile platform. Like a smartphone. So all of that has to be taken into consideration during the planning phase. And then, of course, there's a good old desktop interface where you've got your PCs and multiple monitors, and you're really able to work on larger screens and handle and visualize a lot more data at the same time. And that perhaps is the best interface. Again, it's just a matter of picking out the right tool for the job, and once we understand the problem, we can help you pick the right tool for the job. So we also offer a variety of interfaces. Again, we try to gear everything and customize it to you, just like buying a suit of clothes. So we can do modern interfaces. So that's kind of a term that Microsoft pioneered for the way the new versions of Windows look. They have bigger buttons and icons and things like that, and that's currently in vogue. But there are more traditional user interfaces that people are very comfortable with, and it's really up to you which way you want to visualize your data. We can help you do it either way. So the next thing I want to talk about is pins on a map. So I remember when I was growing up in my dad's business and working there, sweeping the floors or whatever, he had a big map on the wall, and he actually had pins in a paper map on the wall. Well, those days are gone. You can hardly find a paper map anymore with maps on our phones and everything else. But adding that geographic layer to your data can be very important. It really gives you a new way of visualizing data, just as the pins did on the paper map back in the 70s and 80s. Now we have great maps from companies like ESRI, Google Maps, the Google Earth system, Bing Maps. All of these are some of the top map providers, and all of them can be interfaced with your data. And we're very good at doing that. And if that's something that you think would be beneficial, we can make that part of your data solution. So, whether you're building, like a data house or a data warehouse, which is another popular term, and I'll kind of stay away from the term big data because to me that really kind of gets into the mountain of data that comes out of large social media type systems, and that's really, not part of our discussion today. So, with Microsoft SQL Server, that's one of the Microsoft tools that we use to store data with. It's what we call a backend. So the backend being where the data is stored, the actual numbers, words, pictures, whatever it may be of data that you're storing, versus the front end, which is going to be the user interface that we just talked about for how you visualize the data, how you call up the data, how you enter the data, those types of things. So Microsoft SQL Server is something that can be used with a database called Microsoft Access. And so Microsoft Access is part of the Microsoft Office family. Probably everybody's heard of it. Not everybody's used it. And it's considered an older system. It's been around a long, long time. But it's part of Microsoft Office 2016, the brand new version. And so it's got a long life ahead of it. And it's a very, very powerful tool. It's a full database system by itself. It has both front-end and back-end development and capability. So you can just sit down in front of it, create an entire database. It's a fantastic tool, but you can't outgrow it. And so when you outgrow it, then Microsoft SQL Server is there. But Access has its limitations. It doesn't operate natively on most smartphones today. And so you may need the front end to be developed in a system like Microsoft ASP.NET, which is what we would do it in and what we would recommend for the job. And so that's something that we can program a front end that can be on a smartphone, web browser, so it can run across different devices. So anything that can run in a web browser, even a Mac, can display the data. Whereas unfortunately, Microsoft Access does not run on a Macintosh. It runs on a Windows platform. So that kind of gives you an idea of some of the tools that are a step up from just doing things in a spreadsheet. So if you've got a lot of spreadsheets now, those are kind of the next tool set to get into to grow and mature your data situation. So so there you kind of got a data house, kind of as a play on words from the term data warehouse, which is a popular jargon in the computer industry. So Microsoft Access is kind of your data house, and maybe even Excel is a small starter home for your data too. And so Microsoft will take you to about 2 gigabytes of data. That really is quite a bit, especially when you're talking about audio, video, or photographic data. If you're just talking about text and numbers, you can really put quite a bit in 2 gig, but it is possible to outgrow it. There's no question about it. So Microsoft makes a tool called the Microsoft SQL Server Migration Wizard that will actually migrate data from Access into Microsoft SQL Server. And a lot of people don't know, but there is a free version of SQL Server, and it's even free for commercial use, not just personal use. And that allows you to store up to 10 gigabytes of data. Now, there are some limitations with that, but that's a huge jump. That's 5 times what Access stores. And again, for many small businesses, maybe some medium businesses, and some departmental applications within large organizations, Access the 2 gig limit can be sufficient. But being able to step up to 10 gig at 5 times that really takes over a large chunk of the market. So while you always hear people talking about big data this and data warehouse that and that sort of thing, and that's great, and super large organizations have that, and that's fine, and we're glad to help them work with that type of data. But the majority of databases in the world are probably smaller than that. And so if you need to get out of the free version, the paid versions of SQL Server actually handle 524 petabytes. So really, really large amounts of data. Only some extreme applications could outgrow that. So very large organizations like Dell.com, NASDAQ, things like that are really big, that people really rely on, that have to be totally reliable, those things run on SQL Server. So let's talk a little bit about reporting against your data, because it's great to have all the data stored somewhere, but you want it to be accessible and you want it to come out in a format that is useful and meaningful to you. So good old Microsoft Access can be a great reporting tool. Just because you've migrated and outgrown Access, outgrown Excel, and now you're in SQL Server, you can still use Access as a front end to do reports. And this is important because you may not always want to have to contact a professional programming firm like Winning Solutions to build a query or to build a report for you. You may want to build one your own. And while Access does require some expertise to operate and is perhaps a little bit more complicated than Excel and certainly more advanced to use than Microsoft Word, it is possible for people to grasp and do things and be productive and make reports in Microsoft Access without being a trained professional computer programmer. And that's fantastic. That's really liberating. And we encourage even though we're professional programmers and that's what we make our living doing, we really encourage our customers to do all the things they can on their own and then just come to us when they really need something difficult or that they don't have time to do or that it's more cost effective to have us do. Those are the 3 times we think that you should use a professional programmer, not just because you have to. There are other programming environments like Crystal Reports, and we also like Microsoft SQL Server reporting services. This is a very powerful tool as well, and we're skilled and adept in all of these tools. So if you need reporting done, I'm pretty confident that with one of these tools or another tool, we can make any report you can envision come to life. So as far as hosting of the data, you may want to have total control of your data, and you may want to host it on your premises. And that's fine. We can definitely help you do that, help you facilitate that, make that happen for you. Whether it's on existing equipment that you have or some new equipment that you would acquire. Or you may want to host the data in your own data center. If you're a larger organization, you may have your own data center, or you may rent or lease space within a third-party data center. Again, those are all perfectly viable environments for every one of the solutions that I've discussed today. And then there's the newest buzz thing in the industry, which is in the cloud. So there are cloud services like Amazon, but particularly Microsoft Azure that we really like for placing customer data and customer applications there. People really like the scalability and the reliability of it. Since we tend to build a lot of things with Microsoft technology, we feel that Microsoft Azure is probably the right way to go in most situations because of the fact that it is built by Microsoft, and you should get the highest degree of compatibility and reliability because you're on a pure solution. Just as you do, life is a little bit easier if all your devices at home are Apple devices. Life tends to be a little bit simpler. That rule kind of applies to data as well. And in the business world where Microsoft has a very strong market share, it might make sense to kind of standardize on their platform and standardize on their cloud hosting. So what we're really talking about in all of these things that comprise this data management, data housing, data warehousing, are really, we feel, are custom solutions, and that's really what we offer. So we're not here to say, oh, buy our software that will do exactly what you want and be perfect for you, because rarely is that the case. That software is perfect for somebody else, but it's probably not perfect for you. So we would ask that you consider developing a custom solution. And depending on the size of your organization and your budget, this may actually be cheaper than just going out and buying some software. And that's really exciting. And why is that important? Because you need to understand that when you spend money for software, in most cases, you're licensing it. You don't really own it. And that's a big differentiator. With WSI, you actually own the software. So when we're done and we've been compensated for the work we've done, you take ownership of all that code just as if you had programmed it yourself. In fact, even to the degree that if you chose to resell it to others, there would be no compensation due to our firm. All the rights transferred to you upon payment. And you have to remember, too, that it's not just what the software costs you year one. It's what does the software cost you after year 5 or after year 10, because all the software out there now tends to charge annual licensing fees. The next thing you have to think about is your business growing? And if it's growing, that's a big factor, because what if your business doubles from 500 to 1,000 employees? What's going to happen with the licensing cost of your software when it doubles in the number of users, if that's how their revenue model works of this program that you're licensing? That could be huge. With us, if you buy it, you double, you triple in size, it doesn't matter. You've already paid for it. You own it. It still works for all the employees that you have. So that's something you have to factor in. So I'm not saying that a custom solution from us is going to be cheap. It may not be, but it's relative. It depends on your organization and what you're considering purchasing in lieu of a custom solution. So I think that, that kind of, to kind of sum it up, we program it, you pay for it, you use it just as if you had programmed it yourself. That's, instead of in lieu of reading a 70-page licensing agreement, that pretty much sums up the way we transfer software to you when we work for you. So we hope that you've enjoyed the video and that this, gives you some understanding of the services that we offer here and how we might help you and your organization. Whether you're healthcare dealing with a lot of data, insurance, or something else, data is data, and we've worked with many types of databases, and we can be very effective helping you. So I would encourage you to call, email, chat with one of our friendly representatives. You can do all of those things through our website. So please visit us today. We're at winningsolutionsinc.com or microsoftaccessexpert.com. Either one of those will get you to us. And then if you like this video, please give us a thumbs up, and we wish you a great day. Thanks.